Top of the morning to you. Thank you for listening. It gladdens me Irish heart to know you're tuning in. My name is Juan, here with Mark and Kevin, and we fancy films. Say hello, fellas.
I
On this episode, we're going to review the 2022 film The Banshees of Inisherin. And that was my Irish accent, just to start it off, in honor of our second movie set in Ireland in a row. How about that?
oh, I didn't know the first one was in Ireland. I wasn't paying attention
Oh,
to that
wow.
part.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah, if you didn't get that from the brief introduction, we are back and we are reviewing again the film The Banshees of Inisherin. This is a film directed by Martin McDonagh of previous films like In Bruges, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, and Seven Psychopaths, which he also wrote all of those, including this one. The film starts Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Kerry Condon, and Barry Keoghan. It was released on November 4th, 2022, distributed by Searchlight Pictures, produced by Blueprint Pictures along with Searchlight Pictures. It's a runtime of an hour and 54 minutes. It's so far it seems like it's grossed about $25 million worldwide, so it's not a huge big budget release. And the synopsis is this: set on a remote and remarkably beautiful island off the west coast of Ireland. Our second film set in Ireland is The Banshees of Inisherin. It follows lifelong friends Podrick, played by Colin Farrell, and Colin, played by Brendan Gleeson, who find themselves at an impasse when Colin unexpectedly and abruptly puts an end to their friendship. A stunned and confused Podrick, aided by his sister Siobhan, played by Condon, and troubled young Islander Dominic, played by Keoghan, endeavors to repair the relationship, refusing to take no for an answer. But Podrick's repeated efforts only strengthen his former friend's resolve, and when Colin delivers a desperate ultimatum, events swiftly escalate with shocking consequences. This film is a dark comedy that on the surface raises poignant questions about friendship, but unspools and reveals even deeper ruminations about existence, purpose, belonging, and loneliness. It also brings together a team in McDonagh, Farrell, and Gleeson who made a huge splash with their 2008 production In Bruges. Since then, Farrell and Gleeson have cemented their reputation and status as artistic acting heavyweights, while McDonagh has proven through his former projects that he is a master storyteller with a unique vision. The film is set in 1923 with the backdrop of the Irish Civil War, shortly after a war for independence with the English, which serves as a metaphor of the personal conflict taking place in the story. We have so much to unpack. Let's start with the man who brought us here. Kevin, this was your pick. Tell us why you chose this film and what your initial take is. But first, it's also at this point that we will give our disclaimer that there will be spoilers ahead. So if you are intrigued by what you've heard so far and you want to watch this, pause this episode right here and come back and listen after you've seen it.
pew, pew,
Kevin?
pew, pew. That's my own sound effects.
All right. Well, I'm a huge fan of In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths. And when I think I totally freaked out and flipped out when I saw the trailer for this. I remember sending it to you guys. I was excited. Once I saw that it came on HBO Max where you could watch it for streaming, I was like, this, I think everyone knew that was going to be my pick. And when I first watched it, I was watching it. Remember in the beginning, I was like, okay, this is okay. This is no In Bruges, but as it started unfolding and this flower started blossoming and opening, I started getting more and more into it, and then I was really into it. I liked it, and but it was like one of those jokes that when you hear, you're like, okay, it's whatever, and the punchline hits you a couple of minutes after everybody. I finished it afterwards as I was ruminating on it. I was like, wow, this was really good. Like I just started like just delving more into it, just because I went out for a long drive, was thinking about it, and there's more that I'll share. But I love this movie, and
I thought you were going to tell us how enthralled you were.
I was not. I ruminated.
I believe it's ruminate.
I probably is. I'm tired. Let's go.
Okay.
English major. You took a couple English classes. You bastard.
See, that's why I stick to cool words like cool and boring.
The 4-letter kind.
Oh yeah.
Can't go wrong.
You want me to go next, or
You go.
You're up. You're up.
All right. I'm a fan of In Brugs. It was. I thought it was a pretty lighthearted, fun movie. There were good laughs. Um, this was tough to watch. This was just a story that, as it unpacked, I found myself getting more frustrated because of the relationship that apparently they did have or they didn't have. I don't know. Um, but it's hard for me to think that someone woke up one day and just didn't want to be a part of someone's life anymore. Um, and just watching it unfold, it was kind of cringe, and I didn't enjoy it. There were a couple chuckles here, here and there, but I think it was more emphasis on dark than comedy. And I mean, by the end of it, the driving I did afterwards was just like, man, I hope I really do have friends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't know that. When was the last time you watched In Bruges? Because
It's been a long time, but I mean, I always see like scenes that people like to post from that movie, and I mean, it's always things that make me laugh. And
Knee
so,
slappers.
no, I wouldn't say knee slappers because there was moments where I was chuckling in this movie, but I think I found myself laughing a bit more in Bruges, but in this one, yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was as funny. But then again, it's been a very long time since I've seen it. But I remember that the story was a bit more lighthearted than this story. Um, so I think maybe that's kind of just what I was focusing on. I don't know.
okay, it's been a long. I mean, I think I saw it with Kevin, if I'm not mistaken. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, but I haven't seen it since then, and so I've definitely changed a lot since 2008, 2009.
Hmm.
So I want to watch it again. Now as a
Especially after this.
yeah. So I have it on DVD, and I do plan to watch it soon. But as far as this film, let me start with the official definition of a banshee for the uneducated, which I will say was me before looking it up.
Mm.
A banshee is a female spirit in Gaelic folklore
Hmm.
whose appearance or wailing warns a family that one of them will soon die.
Hmm.
I really love this movie, especially the more I did research and saw interviews and did these things that force. I mean, I didn't really learn anything new from those. It actually just confirmed, some of what I picked up on as far as themes and ideas that were in the movie. But just the more that I just thought about it, even as I was writing my intro and some other thoughts that I have on it, I love it. And I'll go into some specific scenes and tell you about those, but the movie was deep in a good way, although it was, you guys said cringe and it was
Just
painful.
me.
Yeah, I mean, it was painful to endure at times.
Mm-hmm.
The first half was entertaining and hilarious. Like, I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was so funny, especially like Colin Farrell was so funny. But even Kerry like they all had great timing and just great writing.
Mm-hmm.
Now the second half, things really, start to darken. When the fingers start coming off, everything starts spinning downward like a hardened poop log in the toilet bowl. It was a car crash that you couldn't take your eyes off of and felt guilty for like staring at. This movie is not for everyone. And I think that's a real shame because just like Another Round, which was a film that we all loved, I think this movie is important. I think it's significant and it's tragically beautiful. The directing and the storytelling are impeccable. The acting is inspired and awe inspiring as you watch, and you just know that it truly doesn't get better than this. And of course, the subject matter is rich and thought provoking. I have many more thoughts, but yeah, I'll let one of you guys chime in here and kind of send us off on a specific direction.
I think the problem I had the most I reading the synopsis, like it mentions that they are they've been friends for a long time, and from this movie I didn't feel that they had a friendship that had grew over years. It felt like what was he first calling him? Sonny Calm Larry or
Yeah,
something like that.
calm,
Yeah.
calm, Sonny.
Calm.
Calm
Yeah.
Sonny Larry, yeah. I didn't like there was no point in this movie where I felt like Calm and Podrick had a really good relationship. And so it was hard for me to understand why Podrick would continue to try to salvage this relationship with Calm when he has like I mean zero to go as far as cutting fingers off. Like that's pretty intense. So it just I just started feeling bad for Podrick. I'm like, dude, you obviously like have you don't have friends, you know, and this is the one friend you have, and he no longer wants to be your friend, only for the only reason that he's giving, which is your doll. Um, and so it was hard for me to like swallow that, and it was hard for me to watch it unfold because I don't know, man. For me personally, like if I know someone, and I've actually had an instance with someone that I considered a friend, but it's like as soon as I found out that they didn't have the same feeling for me, I was just like, oh, okay, and I moved on. Um, and just for him to continue doing what he was doing, and there was just no backstory, like no flashbacks. You know, I just even the bartender mentioned like you guys were a weird pairing. So it's just it was tough for me to buy that, you know, Podrick was so loyal to his friend Calm when Calm was willing to do he was willing to go as far as he went to make sure that Podrick didn't talk to him anymore. You know? It's just it was tough for me to like be engulfed in this story because I was stuck on that. I'm like, I don't why does he just wake up and go, I don't want to be your friend anymore? And then why is Podrick so hell bent on trying to salvage this relationship? So for me, that's just kind of obviously that's the point of the movie, but
Mm-hmm.
it was hard for me to get in and you know enjoy it It sounds like as much as you guys did. Um, Outside, there were some funny parts. I think the bread van thing was the funniest thing for me.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
because
that was the funniest. I
because
was
he
gonna
like
say that.
My
you can see him trying to build this lie, and he's like, "Yeah, this is exactly how my my mom died." So it's just it was yeah, that was kind of funny. And I agree. I think that everyone played their parts well. Like even though I didn't like Calm, I think he played the part. Gleeson played it perfectly. I thought Farrell from the beginning was just laughable because they even gave him like a they gave him how do I say this without like triggering anyone? They gave him a haircut that made him look like he had
Yeah,
a couple extra chromosomes, I don't know how like I'm trying not to be
like
like
he was a very simple-minded man.
yeah, like
yeah,
simpleton.
simple
Yeah.
Jack over here.
Yes.
Um and so, I guess but that's kind of also what was upsetting me because you can tell that like even Dominic at one point said touche and he goes, "What does that mean?" He's like, "That's French." And his sister looked at him like, "Really? You don't know touche?" Like
Yeah.
so it's just like knowing that Podrick isn't the brightest bulb was even more hard for me to watch this because and that's where the cringe came in because like I could see that he's not wanted and he's just like, well, I want to be wanted and no one's doing it. Like no one is doing it except I feel like Dominic was only doing it because he was trying to get at Shaban. So it's I don't know. It was just
Doing what specifically? Like trying to help
staying
them repair?
yeah, keeps like being around. I feel
Be
like
a
he was
buddy.
only yeah, I feel like he was only around because he was hoping like he wanted to shoot a shot with his sister. And once that didn't pan out, we didn't see him anymore, you
Hmm.
know? At least Podrick
Oh, we
didn't
saw.
see
I
him anymore.
was like, we saw it one more time.
No, yeah, but Podrick didn't. Shaban did,
Ugh,
you know?
ugh.
So I don't know, man. Like it was hard for me to just sit and enjoy this because not that it's hit close to home, but I don't know. It's just it's tough to watch something about like when you know someone isn't wanted and that person's just like, well, I want to be wanted. I'm just like, all right, well, I don't know. It was just a tough story and it was just tough for me to watch it and enjoy it, and for me
Yeah.
to say, oh, I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
I, I was
Well,
gonna say real quick. I think the part that made me understand Calm a little bit was the sister Siobhan, whatever, however you say her name, because like Calm. It's not that he was just a doll. It's like he's like, hey, he's gonna drag me to his dullness, and I want to do something great. I want more than just this island. While Patrick he was all about the island. He doesn't want to leave the island. He doesn't want anything more out of life. But then we see the sister who was fine on the island, and then when they said stuff, nobody wants to be with you. This is your life. Like she wanted more, so that's why she left the island. And I
Hmm.
think that's what happened to Colm. He's like, no, I don't want to be with you because you're just going to keep me here in this, being an average person and never doing anything. And I want to create music. I want to do stuff. I don't want to waste my time like you do anymore. And that's why I guess he just viewed, you know, Colin Farrell's character as this person who's just draining my life. You know what I mean? I just need to focus. I want more out of life, and he doesn't.
well, let me say that I just think the movie becomes. I mean, I was just gonna kind of affirm just where you're at, Mark, because I think you're like the way that you're thinking about it is absolutely correct. It is a very difficult story to to observe, and I think it becomes, for some people. I mean, I think the intent is for it to be personal and because, like, for example, like you pointed out, you don't know much about these characters beforehand, and that was intentional. Martin McDonagh, he said that he liked that aspect of starting the story right away without you knowing much about the characters,
Hmm.
or maybe Colin Farrell said this, because you kind of go in blind, right? So you don't make up your mind beforehand. Like maybe if you knew their history, you might go, well, I like Podrick, or I like, Calm, and already go into it. Instead, you're really open when the story starts, and you're, piecing it together like, okay, this is what Podrick is. This is what he's about. This is who Calm is. They're not getting along. What happened here? It's a real mystery where you're kind of doing detective work like you're describing as you go along. For me, it even takes on a deeper level then, which is then, as a personal story, then you kind of start filling in the gaps, or drifting towards a specific character to relate to, and kind of to see it and observe it, or through their perspective and their point of view, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, that challenge in trying, and I think that if you, I would even say that I think if you watched it another time, now that you've arrived, or you're at that, like the first viewing left you with those questions, I think, whatever kind of disturbed you about it, I think kind of maybe took your focus off of. I think if you went back into it, and then even with those same questions, I think that's what's great about it, is like, the way that you answer those questions kind of determines, how you feel about the story or the characters. And it could be different, for each of us. So like for me, for example, I mean, I say that in many ways, like I could relate more to Colum. Like I understood, kind of who he was, but I admire Podrick more. Like um, Podrick has qualities that I feel are higher, and more noble. Um, but I say that about both characters, feeling like they both suffer from some form of undiagnosed psychosis, or likely induced by a life in the solitude of this cocoon that they live in. And I think one of the things that I took away from it, as far as that relationship, and why this means so much to Podrick, it's never really implied or even suggested, but I do think that Podrick, their relationship, for Podrick, there's a component of Colin being this father figure, to Podrick, and then even more so, having even more pride in being in that relationship with him, because again, like, everybody admires him, and everybody, looks up to him, and then Podrick has this unique friendship with him, where they meet every day, and they have some pints at the pub, and has kind of, for so long, had this unique position sort of beside him. And again, it just briefly mentions that he lost both of his parents at some point. And so I think it has, for him, part of what's made it so difficult is because I mean, I would say he probably has, or he's at least friendly with lots of people in the village, because he's a likable guy. But maybe a particular angle for why this specific friendship was so meaningful for him and so difficult to lose was that, Column, I think, satisfied that hole within him for also having a parental figure. Because if you look at it, his sister was also a parental figure, right? I mean, here he is, like a full-fledged adult man, and she's still taking care of him. She's still cooking for him. She's probably washing his clothes. So I think both of them, even though they were one his sister and one, likely his best friend, I think each of them also fulfilled a parental role in his life.
And I could 100% see that, but that's why I'm like, upset that Calm would do what he did because
Yeah.
let's be honest, I mean, we don't have to see what they were doing before this movie started because it's very apparent that they went to the pub, they drank, and they went home. And that's what they did. The bell chimed, time to go to the pub. So, like, I don't need to see anything before that. But for me, it's like, what did Calm see from Podrick that made him go, "Oh, I like this guy. I want to talk to him and hang out with him," when it doesn't seem like Podrick's changed at all. Like there's nothing that he changed. Like he was still this same quote unquote dull person. So I mean, why would Colin befriend him if later on down the road he's going to be like, "Oh, this guy's just bringing me down." It's just it was just it was weird, and I think had I seen more interactions between them before, like we were at this point, then I could have understood why Calm did what he did. But it's hard for me to think that someone who would be with someone on a regular basis would all of a sudden just go, "Oh, I don't want to be with that person anymore." If Podrick did something, if Podrick said something, then I could fully understand that. But, since I didn't get that, and, Podrick seems like he is running this race a little slower than the rest of us. Uh, it's like, okay, well then I don't understand how Calm would have, you know, just this shred of decency to be like, you know what, I'm gonna keep talking to this guy instead of going the complete opposite, going, hey man, if you talk to me, I'm gonna cut my finger off.
Yeah, and I think I mean, yeah, again, it's a great point. And I
Yeah.
think for me, what is harder to see, this is something that I kind of had to think about a little bit afterward. But if you think about it, it's so obvious. Like who cuts their fingers off? And especially a musician who cuts their fingers off.
Crazy people.
Exactly. So what if you really think about it, like Colum is the much 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 more troubled person in this story. And the priest even asked him, like, how are you doing with your despair? He's depressed, he's in a midlife crisis, he's thinking
Yeah.
about his legacy. Like, he is actually an extremely troubled person. And so while Podrick has never changed, you're right about the nature of that dynamic. Column is changing, and I think that as he's dealing with trying to make sense, because even he, like, there's times where even he knows that what he's doing is not right, and he's not necessarily approving of his actions, but he still feels that these are actions that he needs to take at this point in his life. So I think it's not, what Podrick did. It's and then I did hear this from one of the guys talking about it, but it is in a way like what Podrick, I think, represents to him, so Podrick has become to him like this vessel of something that he's become very embittered about, and something about cutting that off and distancing himself from it is, he thinks at least, is going to provide him with some form of release or happiness, maybe even.
It did feel a lot like a boyfriend and girlfriend breaking up, like, or a marriage, where the stuff that you loved about a person, you now like represents everything you don't like. And even as the movie rolled on, it reminded me a lot of well, The Breakup by Vince Vaughn,
Hmm.
where it just keeps rolling out. You're like, okay, it's going to turn, it's going to get better, but it doesn't. It's just getting worse and worse. And even if, hey, I used to like the way they laugh, oh, I can't stand the way they laugh now. You know what I mean? And that's what I was watching, and that's what kept popping into my head. I'm like, oh man, that this just keeps getting worse and worse. And anything like Podrick tries, even his nice nature, he always says something. You know, he just confesses, yeah, I shouldn't have lied to him about a thing. Now he can come back. I'm like, oh man, you know what I mean? Because to him, he's not doing anything wrong. He's just, hey, everything I do is good. But you can see that Calm is just getting more annoyed by everything, at least the way it was coming off to me, everything that he used to like about this simple guy who was a loyal friend and everything. And what Juan had just said, like everything he was representing just started like making him hate him more and more and more, even though it's stuff that he may have liked before.
So let me ask you, Mark,
Hmm.
since you kind of let's just, I guess, to put it in these terms, like you're kind of siding with Podrick, right? I think that's not. I think most of us would.
Hmm.
But so like, how do you feel about the way that then his character evolved or devolved? Then by the end, like, how do you feel about that arc and his change?
I mean, I this is gonna sound hilarious, but I think the worst moment was when his donkey died,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I feel like 100% that was the only thing. Obviously, it's not a person. That's the only thing that cared about him. And I mean, Shaban would yell at him all the time, no donkey in the house, and that was just like that was his dog. Like that's the relationship that you have with the dog. You want your dog around you 24/7, and that's how he was with his miniature donkey there. And so when that came to fruition and he turns that corner and sees his donkey, with fingers in his mouth, um, at that point I was just like, oh come on, man, like this guy's got even more dumped on him now. His sister left, the only person that he loves, like, left. His clearly only friend Calm has wants nothing to do with him, and now he comes home and sees that his donkey's dead. And um yeah, I was just like, this is not. I completely understand why you want to go and burn that dude's house down, like, because you're sitting here trying to figure out why he's doing what he's doing, why he's making the decisions that he's making when you're just still living your life. You're doing what Podrick has always done. And I think yeah, it was just when it all came down to it, I was just like, well, for what? What was all this for? Like, the movie ended and it was just like, I don't know what all that was for. Like, him cutting his fingers off, and I mean, he felt guilty about it. And I understand he has, Calm had his own issues that he was dealing with, but I mean, I kind of feel like he was just taking it out on Podrick because he knew he could, and because Podrick's not going to do anything. And once he realized, well, once he burned his house down, that he was like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have gone this route, And I feel like he had some remorse there, but only because it had gotten as far as it had gone, you know. Um, and so that ending just doesn't sit right with me because Podrick is still, he has to lie to his sister and pretend like everything's okay when everything's not okay.
Oh, the ship has sailed in more ways than one. That Podrick that started the movie is not with us anymore,
Yeah,
and the
his
new
haircut
pod.
changed.
Well, and the new Podrick has taken over, and it's it's sad because the light in his life was completely snuffed out. But
Completely. And
yeah,
I like, and there was symbolism there. I don't know if you noticed that when he was like reading his letter out loud that he wrote to Shaban, and he ended it and he put the fire out with his fingers.
hmm
Like, that was just like,
mm,
I was just like, where is this movie going, man? Like,
mm,
is there any light?
yeah,
Is there any light?
yeah,
And that light never came. And I think, just like, for me, it's tough to watch someone go through, like, the grinder like he did when there's obviously something wrong with him.
yeah.
There's something there that's wrong with him. And so I don't like, if Podrick had everything in the world and then we watched him, like, have this decline, I could have understood it some more, you know. But
Yeah.
it's just like, this guy was who he was and he's always been that way. And he's made the decisions that led up to where he's at now because of everything that was happening around him.
hmm
His sister leaving, his best friend wanting nothing to do with him, his other best friend dying because his he thought who his best friend was decided to throw his fingers all over the garden and the lawn of his house. It's just, it was. it was a train wreck that I just didn't want to watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first like that, I didn't I didn't think about that with the candle. Like at the time when it happened, I literally like I did something about it like resonate. I was like, why did he like snuff the candle out with his fingers, like it just seemed like a bit of an odd choice. But now that you mention it, like, yeah, totally. I mean, I guess I knew there were, no, I didn't, but now I see the symbolism in that, and it's, yeah, I think it's spot on.
Yeah,
um
like for me, like if you touch fire, fire burns, right? And I know when you snuff out a candle like that with your fingers, there's maybe like a split second of pain, but a lot of people don't do that because I don't want to feel that little second of pain. He did it without hesitation.
yeah,
So for me, like he was past the point of feeling pain. Like he
yeah,
couldn't feel anything anymore.
yeah,
He's laying in bed curled up, fully dressed with his shoes on, and like he puts out that. I mean, bro, when he sat there with the dead donkey on his lap, I was just
yeah.
Jenny on his lap. I'm like, what is happening? What is this movie trying to do? Like, I don't
Dude,
understand why we're what for what? And
yeah,
we ended, and it was just like I don't know like why I had to watch this.
yeah. I mean, that scene ripped my heart out.
It was brutal.
Yeah, but I have a theory. I have a theory that I'll share with you in a little bit. First, I want to back up a little bit just to give our listeners a little bit more background information in case they're not going to watch this movie, but they're listening to it, to us discuss it, and they're wondering what the heck is going on with the fingers and the house burning down. So yes, this guy no longer wants to be friends with the other one. He eventually gives him an ultimatum, and he says, "Bro, if you do not stop talking to me, then I'm literally going to start cutting my fingers off." And from that point on, it's like, whoa, what the heck? He's getting advice. They're like, don't talk to him. Another friend is like, hey, call his bluff. Sure enough, sure
Which is what I
enough.
would have done. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're gonna cut your finger off? Knock, knock, knock. Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? You gonna cut that
um,
finger off?"
So yeah, I mean, he's a man of his word. First, he chops one off, and then I even love the line where I think it was Colin Farrell who was like, "Why is chopping fingers like what you resort to? Like, shouldn't there be a few other steps in between? Like, why go straight to the fingers?" But then the next time he goes ahead and chops off all the fingers in his hand. And eventually things deteriorate so far that Podrick, who was the friend that was broken up with, has his, like Mark said, his favorite pet dies, and then he goes off and burns his friend's house,
His
not
sister
caring.
left. His
Yeah,
sister
his
left
sister
too.
left. Yeah.
Well,
um,
and Jenny died though because the guy threw the fingers at the house, and then the donkey ate one and choked on it and died.
right. And then, but yeah, when he burned the house down, he didn't care if he was in there or not. And so, I guess I won't quite give away the end. What happens after that leaves some intrigue and mystery, but that's kind of what we're talking about with the fingers and whatnot. That being said, let me go into my list of the four toughest scenes to watch in this movie. Again, the first half was to me hilarious and awesome. From the middle point on, though, there's definitely difficult things. This was in the first half, not really tough to watch, but unpleasant. The naked cop. Uh, that I didn't need to see that, but I get it. He was a big pervert who liked to play around with his son. Next one was Siobhan leaving and Podrick pleading with her not to go. That was soul crushing.
You know
Next,
why that was soul crushing?
yeah.
Because she made the decision after, like, she made her decision based on the circumstance. She didn't make her decision
Mm-mm.
because
I don't think so, my friend.
100%, bro.
No, because she had already applied for that job, or at least inquired about it.
No, I thought they just sent her the letter saying, "Hey, we got an opening. Are you interested?"
What do you think? This is Amazon. No, they didn't send her the letter saying, like,
She had acquired.
how would they have known about her?
What do you mean?
It was the
I
1920s.
Yeah,
I don't.
in 1920, how do they find her in that island to offer her a job?
I just assumed she was like, "Hey, if you ever have an opening, let me know. Here's a letter." And they came back and said, "Hey, we have an opening. Are you still interested?" And that's when she was like, "Oh well, I'm in the middle of dealing with my brother having a meltdown because his friend doesn't want to talk with him anymore." And this is just like, I don't know. That's how I took it. It was just bad
Yeah,
timing, and she didn't want to go. But I feel like she decided to go after she just got fed up with it. And she's just like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go."
no. I think the implication is that she's always obviously known that she wants to go and needs to go. And yeah, I think it was just bad timing. I mean, who knows? They could have said
Uh,
she doesn't know. Like, what if she waits or if she passes up that offer? I'm sure it's easy to fill that position in the mainland. So I think this was her opportunity. To pursue
Yeah.
what she wanted.
'Cause I think to me the catalyst was when that person was like, "Yeah, that's why you're not with anybody. Nobody wants to be with you." And that's when she turned around, and from there it seemed like she was more apt to take that job and get off that island.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Um. All right. Then number two was Dominic's rejection by Siobhan, especially when he says the line, "There goes that dream." That was also gut wrenching. And then, of course, number one,
What was he
which
expecting? Come
I
on.
know, I know, but dude, there's not that many ladies on that island. You know,
Right,
that's
right.
that's literally why it was a dream and not just shooting your shot. I was
Yeah.
literally like so much invested in that. But then I honestly I liked this so much. I was like, let me watch this movie again. Because I got some time. But then I thought about that scene with the donkey, and I was like, I don't know, I can't watch that again. Dude, it was so sad. First, because the donkey was so cute,
Hmm.
but he was also such a good pet, such a good companion to
He
him,
was
you
like a
know?
dog.
Yeah, exactly like a dog. And then not it was sad enough just seeing him dead on the yard in the yard with the finger in his mouth. And then you cut to the next scene and he's holding him in his lap, like petting him while it's so sad thinking about it now.
I originally, like, when I first saw that, I kind of chuckled because it was like, oh shit, like what are we doing here, guys? Like, why are we showing this to me? His limp body, the donkey's limp body sprawled across this guy's legs.
Yeah. It was sad, man. It made me pause before pressing play and watching it again.
I always find it funny that I can watch a human being die on screen. I'm just like, next. I
Yeah.
see an animal die, and I'm like, this poor animal. Like, this dude's chopping fingers off. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That donkey died. I'm like, goodness gracious, what is this world coming to, people?
It was so impactful that it even snapped Colm out of his thing where he defended
Yeah.
Podrick, and he was even like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
He had to go to, what is it called when you go to cat the you sit in with the priest? I'm not a Catholic. I don't know what that's
Confessional.
called.
Confession.
Confessions. That's what it is. I
Well,
mean, it hit him enough that he had to go confess about that, and the
yeah.
priest even was like, "You think God cares about a donkey?"
Yeah.
That made me chuckle. I was like, "Yeah, God don't care about that donkey."
Dude, that scene too, when the first time he went to confessional and then the priest was like cursing him out, that was hilarious. Um, but since those were my toughest scenes to watch, let me go to one of my favorites, and at least my favorite line in the movie, which was when Podrick gets drunk and then he confronts Colin,
Mhm.
and they're arguing about what is better, to be remembered by many for your accomplishments and your contributions, or to be remembered by a few for the love, kindness, and intimacy that you shared. And Podrick has his line where he says, well, I remember my mom and dad, and they were really nice, and I'm always going to remember my sister. And so that was a really, really touching moment. And um, so yeah, I mean, so here's my theory. Um, obviously the movie is asking some deep questions about life, and dealing with, themes of loneliness and purpose and friendship. And it's very existential, and even asking very fundamental questions like, what is life? Like, what is the meaning of life is
Hmm.
what I felt, that it was asking. So I think that, there's four main characters, right? There's Podrick and Colum, and then
Oh
there's
boy.
Siobhan and Dominic, right?
Uh
And
huh.
the way that I view them is like, a quadrant, right? So almost like a cross, and there's, four corners and a quadrant on each one.
Hmm.
So I view each character is on a separate quadrant, and this is how I see them, and this is what I think the existential framework of the movie is, and what the film is trying to teach. At least this is the way I saw it, that it was teaching something about a certain balance that needs to be achieved or acquired for each individual, right? Where there's a balance between your inner life and your outer or your exterior life, right? And on one quadrant, I think there's Column. Now, Column, he has a very rich interior life, right? Where he's thoughtful, he's introspective, he's educated, he creates art, but his exterior life, it doesn't match the depth of his interior life, right? Because he doesn't have an equal, and he's considering his mortality, and he's increasingly more and more concerned with his legacy and how he will be remembered and what he will be remembered for. So, like, he's all interior, and everything on the exterior for him, it's all superficial. Now, Podrick, who's in another quadrant, and Mark, you mentioned several times like what's wrong with him. I mean, or you mentioned that a few times. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think he's not mentally retarded or anything. He's not Forrest Gump, you
No,
know.
no.
But Podrick has no interior life,
Yeah.
right? His life is all about the exterior. But there's really beautiful things in that, right? Because he's present, he's in the moment, right? He's simple, he's content. To him, his little slice of the world is the world, right? But the problem is that because he has no interior life, like that outside, it has to remain constant and it has to remain fixed. Like nothing can change, because if there's drastic change, then he doesn't have this anchor. He doesn't have faith or spirituality, or education really anchor him through those changes, which is kind of a contradiction, because he's obviously, I mean, his parents died, so I don't know what that was about. But now he's not an individual that's able to handle, his sister leaving and his best friend, doing what he did. So that's him. Then Dominic is in another quadrant, and he has neither. He has no exterior life and he has no interior life. He probably does have a learning disability. He's clearly developmentally affected by his sexually abusive father. And what's sad about him is that he is a complete victim of circumstance, right? And
Hmm.
and he needs to escape his circumstances, and the one escape that he had was his friendship with Podrick, when he felt like Podrick was, this kind of innocent manifestation, of everything that is good in the world, because he is so good and kind. And when that deteriorates, and then his dream, of finding someone in Siobhan, because he knows he's never going to be able to leave that island, when all that falls apart, we know what happens to him. And then in the last quadrant is Siobhan, and she's the ideal, because she has both. She's a balanced interior and exterior. She's educated, she's smart, and at the same time she can hold her own, with anyone, and has, or could have, if she wanted to, friendships. But she's a big fish in a little pond, and if she
Hmm.
doesn't leave, she will die. So that's kind of my, I guess,
High five.
breakdown of
Character breakdown.
yeah, character
Yeah.
character breakdown, and also what I think the film is is telling, through the analysis of each of these main characters.
Yeah. I 100% hear what you're saying, but I'm stuck on the fact that I didn't I did not fully understand why Calm did what he did,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, I mean, he was willing to cut his fingers off. So him making music and wanting to be remembered for music, why would you then just cut your fingers off then if you're looking to be remembered for something that you did,
Hmm.
and why would you take the
Well,
appendages that you need to complete that dream, to fulfill that dream? um
he
I
did say that one line about like, oh, you don't have to apologize after you did it. He's like, it's a relief because I think it's more like, hey, I want to make this masterpiece and I can't make it, and now I have an excuse on not to make it because I
Hmm.
don't have these fingers.
Yeah.
or maybe his masterpiece was made, because I think that the song, Banshees of Inisherin was, is it Sharon or Shiren? Inisherin? Anyways, um
Banshees of Inisherin.
I feel like that was his piece. So once it was done and completed, then he's like, "Oh, okay, now I've got nothing to lose. I'll go ahead and just chop my fingers off."
Yeah, and also that, I mean, I agree with Kevin, but I think still what is still puzzling is that, it wasn't like he was just a composer. Like he enjoyed playing. Like it's
Yeah.
what he did at the pub, like
Yeah.
playing with other people. It was an outlet to him. It was an escape. So I'm with Mark. Also, like it still doesn't make sense, and it just further shows like how, again. I mean, yeah, there's so many other things he could have done, even, yeah, so like even like a toe, you can go without your toes and still play music, but it was like, this guy was so troubled. And I think that one of the saddest things to kind of consider is because, for like depressed individuals, something that I've, fought with in the past, but you go through these cycles, and these phases, and so this could have been a phase that Calm was going through, and like a year from now he could have changed, and regretted
Yeah.
what he did. So it's like if Padre could have just understood, like, hey, man, give him some time, give him some space,
Right.
and this might all change. But again, that goes to Padre's failure and weakness and inability, and kind of selfishness, right? Because it wasn't so much like, oh, our friendship. It was, truly also like, hey, the void that you fill in my life, like I need that,
Yeah.
and so that was kind of tragic too, that if he would have just given the man space, who knows what would have happened in 3 6 months or a year.
Yeah. I really I think I said out loud, "What's your feckin' problem?" When he went to call him for like the seventh time. I'm like, dude, just stop going over there. Like, just stop. Like, what else do you need? Um, but yeah, it was just tough. Like for me, I think that's just what it was. It wasn't enjoyable because I felt for Podrick, and I couldn't understand why Calm was doing what he was doing, even though he could have been going through like a midlife crisis. I know he's probably not in his midlife considering how old he is, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, he's at that moment where like, oh my God, I have nothing to contribute to this world, and what if I die tomorrow? And I fully understand that because I've had those moments, and I'm like, if I were to leave today, what would people remember me by? What would I be known for? And some people have mentioned, oh, that's why you have kids, and I think that's just like the dumbest reason to be remembered in the world, is because you had a child. Because there's literally no skill into having sex and having a child. So I've never felt like having children was your stamp on this life. Like that's how you can be remembered. I've always felt like you need to do something. Um, I've never felt like it. while I know you should do something, I've never felt like there was something in specific that you had to do, you
Hmm.
know? So I kind of struggle that with that myself. Like, I'm 38 and I don't have anything to show for my life. Like, I don't have a good job, like I don't have an education. I don't have what people consider like staples in life of, flashy car, big house, money. I don't have these things. Um
You
and if
didn't
I
take you didn't take a few film classes in college?
No, unfortunately not, man. I did not. And once I was done with high school, I was done, you know. Uh so it's just I'm struggling with this. Well, what am I going to bring to this world? What am I going to be known for? But for me, like I've never once thought about cutting people out to make myself better. Oh, well, you know what? In order for me to do something that's going to be worthwhile and lasting and memorable, I need to cut out all these people out of my life. Like I've never that's never for me. I'm just like I need to start talking to my friends more. I need to get them to help me to understand what I could do. Like they know me, and so it's just it wasn't a relatable story for me. And you know Calm just wasn't someone I can go, man, I really hope he makes that song that he wanted to make, or he does what he needs to do to be remembered. I wasn't rooting for him. There was
Right.
no point that I was rooting for him. And I think if they would have gave me a little bit more about Calm, and you know I think having a glimpse into past interactions between him and Podrick, I could understand that. Oh wow, yeah, he's just listening to Podrick drone on about Jenny, and he's like, I don't care about your donkey. Like then I would have understood it some more. But I came into this movie, it starts and Calm's like, yo, bro, he's already hitting him with the X, like, I don't want you around me. And it was hard for me to grasp that, to understand that, because I could never see myself Xing someone out of my life just because I feel like not having them around is going to be a benefit to me.
Well, specifically because he's dull, which,
Right.
according to this movie, is about the most hurtful thing that you could be called, is dull. But no, I mean, think of it
Calm.
in terms of this, right? Like we can't really relate to, what call him circumstances, but if you're an alcoholic, but again, we said the idea of like what Podrick represents. So like
Yeah.
if Colin was an alcoholic and now he was trying to get sober, then his best friend who still drinks every day would represent, like his addiction and his demons. So he would probably have to cut ties, or if the addiction was gambling, right? And you're now in Gambling Anonymous, right? And you're trying to change that and overcome that. Well, you're not going to go hang out at the casinos. So there's something that Colum is trying to distance himself from, that Podrick is the embodiment of or the culmination or the representation of, and that's just the kind of like an invisible layer in this story that is never really laid out for us. We never really get to really see that fleshed out or explained. But it's just kind of is there. And then the other thing was, I think with the having children thing, I don't think it's ever about like being remembered for having children. I think it's more about like your children remembering you, and that being what matters, like Podrick was saying, like, I remember my mom and dad. They never left this island. No one knows them, but they mean something to me, and I will carry that, and that to Podrick, like, that is enough. That's why his motivation is to be content and to try to be as good as possible, in his little corner of the world, to the people that he's with, to bring some joy, to be kind to. That's why he's kind to Dominic, even though he knows that, no one else liked Dominic because he's annoying, because he says inappropriate things, because he does inappropriate things, and yet he's still, so kind to him. So yeah, so there's that.
Yeah. I think Dominic's whole character was tough as well. I'm glad they didn't like delve more into his
Yeah.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I will say I was happy when Calm slapped Pappy right in the face. What was the copper's name?
I don't know. He just called. I don't
Uh,
know. Keegan,
no,
something.
it wasn't
Carney? No.
Pater.
Kearney. Yeah, maybe it was.
Yeah, Pater Kearney.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I enjoyed that when he finally slapped him because I feel like that was a good
Yeah.
representation of police officers. They're gonna do what they want with no repercussions unless some grown man goes slap them right in the face.
Dude,
Um,
the aside from the cop though, who was the most hated character, the second one was that freaking lady at that store who was so gossipy and who like read Siobhan's letter.
yeah, she opened up the letter.
That
Uh,
must have opened.
yeah, when she dropped the letter back off, I thought she was gonna open it again, but they didn't show that. Because she even looked at her like, you going, huh?
Hmm.
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, I think I've said all I could say. Well, I will say my my favorite scene from this movie was the first interaction that Podrick had with Calm when he was drunk and Dominic ran to get Shaban and said, "Hey, come get Podrick. He's got lost in the sauce and he's fighting with Calm." I enjoyed that because of how genuine he was, like how genuine Podrick was, and not knowing that his sister was right there behind him, and he talked up his sister. Because usually in movies you see like how that plays out, and the character will say something not knowing that someone's behind them, and they're saying something negative to the character behind them, and now that's a whole thing. So it was kind of nice to just hear Podrick in his drunken state talk about how he loves the people that he loves. Um, I enjoyed that scene. And Calm actually, you could see it. Like he had a moment
Yeah.
where he was just like, what am I doing? But obviously, ultimately, he stayed true to his word and started cutting fingers.
Yeah. um Kevin.
My I will say my first watch through this, I no lie, I had to watch it again because I kept like trying to Google some of the slang that they were using because I didn't know what a gom was. Bro,
What a
when they
gum.
started off with "you guys rowing," I'm like, "What does that mean?" So they're going, "Yeah, you're rowing." I'm like, "What does rowing mean? Like, are they swimming? Like, are they? I don't understand what's happening." And even with Google, like, I couldn't understand what rowing was, but obviously by the end of it, I could just kind of deduce what rowing was. But there was a lot of slang terms that I didn't know, and I don't know if that played into it. Like maybe I couldn't fully grasp because they were saying things that I didn't get.
How long did it take you to figure out that that lady was the Banshee?
The crazy lady.
Yeah.
I mean, after she mentioned the whole death thing, that kind of was. But also, okay. So let me ask you this. So there's a scene where Shaban's leaving. She's on the boat and she looks up at the cliff and somehow she knows it's her brother.
Yeah.
So she starts waving and fast forward to him. It actually is him and he starts waving. But in the background, you can see that there's someone there and
The
they never
Banshee.
show. Was it?
Yeah, but you could see it. You could well, it didn't
It was black because Calm was wearing that
yeah,
large jacket with
I know.
the duster.
No,
So,
what gave it away? Like I didn't know it at that moment because I didn't know yet that that lady
mhm,
was the Banshee.
mhm.
It wasn't until I think it was after the movie was done, and then I googled what a Banshee was, and then
Mhm.
I was like, oh, that lady was the Banshee. And then I thought of that scene again, and I remembered Siobhan's facial expression when
Yeah, it
she,
changed completely.
yeah, and it was like, mm, I don't. It was, yeah, like a little bit like a realization, and almost like fear,
Hmm.
when she saw her. So that's when I realized, oh, that was the banshee that was standing over there.
I think the problem that I had with her being the banshee was that she didn't scream. She
Yeah,
wasn't screaming. She was, because I know, like from playing D&D, like banshees are kind of a staple in, like, they're not good, and there's a lot of shouting, and their words hurt. So that, like, all of that kind of plays into banshees. So I understood what that was. Um, but once the movie ended, I couldn't figure out that character. Like, I was like, why is she there? And then watching it 2, 3 times, I was like, oh, okay, so that's what they're trying to say. She's the one. She's the banshee that's proclaiming, oh, this is what's gonna happen. And so yeah, but that was another thing. What was the point of it? Like, what was the point of her character? I don't. I mean, yeah, okay, she's a banshee and she's telling me what's happening, but for what? Like, what am I supposed to do with that information?
well, there was a lot of death in the movie.
Well, at the end, there was.
Yeah, so she represents death.
But okay, but why do we need, like, the story's not about her? It's about these two characters
But
that.
I
I
just took her more as like symbology, like she's not an actual banshee, of course, but that she was just representing wherever she was. That's what she said. Oh, death will happen, but it's not going to be either one of you. And she was just like the lady who was like the prophet or whatever, or like the spiritual person was like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And then she just kept showing up where bad things happen. And she was just watching them, even at the end when they were just sitting there, because she was just watching them like, hey, y'all not dying yet. I'm just watching over y'all because it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, it was just ominous. It was an ominous presence, and also, um, she, well, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it was funny when Podrick told her in front of Siobhan that Siobhan hides behind walls when she when she sees her coming, and she's like, I do not hide behind," like, so embarrassed.
But
But
you know what's funny about that is
He
that
tries to.
yeah,
fast forward later on in the movie, he's walking down the road
yeah,
and he sees her and he goes to stand behind
yeah.
a wall and he looks up, she's standing right there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it is interesting to think about, like, because the lady, like, she was nice. Like, Siobhan, she was weird, but she was nice. Like, Siobhan was friendly with her,
Hmm.
where, like, she had her over. And so in that way, though, it is like, why do people hide from her? It, on the one hand, it's probably just because they don't want to talk to her, but it's also symbolically, like, because
Because she's scary.
she represents death. And it's also, I think, just a throwback to, like, just the particular Irish mythical folklore. But then
Hmm.
also, interesting, right, that so that Column's song, was his masterpiece, was titled "The Banshees
Hmm.
of Inisherin," and so, in a way, if you think of, like,
And Podrick said there's no banshees.
right. So if you think of, like, if you're thinking folklore and, like, mythical stuff, you could almost say, like, well, did the song bring that about? Like,
Yeah.
bring the banshee out. For
Yeah.
him to, like,
Once he completed the song.
yeah. Yeah. Well, Kevin, you've been terribly quiet for a
Terribly.
while.
That's right on cue for him.
Nah, I was just listening to y'all. Like,
He
there's not
wants us
much.
to introduce him in like you just did.
Nah, it's fine. Um, no, because I said my parts. I mean, I did want to add, by the way, Calm's nubs were so unsanitary. Like he just had them out in the open, and
Yeah.
that kept.
He had blood dripping down.
Not to
Yeah,
mention, he let his dog lick the.
yeah.
Hey man, they say the dog's mouth is the cleanest, so he
Yeah.
knew what he was doing.
But I
Yeah.
was just like,
Antiseptic right there.
wrap it up, bro. Throw a napkin over it or something, man. I'm like, just walking around with those nubs.
It was
Yeah.
dramatic effect, okay? He wanted people to see that he meant business.
Yeah.
I thought it
So
was funny, like every time they showed him walking, his his hand that was missing fingers was always shown, but then his right hand was always, the sleeve was so long that you couldn't see his right hand. All you could see was his left hand. So I started laughing at that. I'm like, all right, I get it. He cut his fingers off.
I watched this movie right before going to church, right? And the pastor, when he was preaching, he hit out Proverbs 18:19, and it says it's easier to conquer a strong city than to win back a friend who you've offended. Their walls go up, making it nearly impossible to win them back. And that recalled, the ending of the movie where, Colin was like, "Hey, this makes us even." He's like, "No, we won't call this an end. We'll call this start." And it just feels like, you see those walls just went up in him. This Jenny died, and it felt like we saw the death of this friendship and like the beginning of like this blood feud, civil war between them two. Because it just ends, but in my mind, like, they go on, they have kids, their kids hate each other, and it becomes like Romeo and Juliet. And yeah, that's one thing that stuck out to me about just how hard it is. Because again, I don't know if we're all talking about the same, but I had a friend who, was friends with us and then just stopped being friends for no reason. Just stopped talking to people, stopped calling people, stopped returning calls, not answering stuff on social media. And it's a weird feeling because you're like, hey, did I do anything? Like, I didn't pursue it like he did in the movie, but it's really weird because you're like, hey, is there something wrong with me? What did I do? Like, I'm a normal person, and I think almost Mark mentioned it earlier when he was like, yeah, like I hope my friends don't think about me this way because that's what goes through your head. You're like, oh, what did I do? I'm like, I'm still the same person. I thought we were cool. We were playing soccer together. We were doing all this. Now, this person just wants to move on with their life. So they're just like, you're dead weight. And you're like, well, that kind of sucks. And it's just about, wait, what was my note here? It's just, it speaks to the essence of who you are. Like, and it has to be painful about like, hey, I got so much enjoyment out of this friendship with you. And that's what I felt for Pedro, because he did get a whole bunch of enjoyment, but now he's being told like who you are as a person offends me. Like the essence of you offends me. And you're just at a loss. Like, because the guy Colin didn't even give him a hey, listen, man, it's just not. He didn't say nothing. He was just he would not offer any like solace at all to him, saying, hey, just what, just give me my space. He was just like, I hate you. Like, I don't want to do anything with you. And Patrick just seemed at a loss, and it's hard to try to figure things out when you don't have the puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, it's speaking to who you are, and you're like, no, and again, that's why I guess the relationship aspect, like a boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, came because you're being rejected, but you're like, hey, why am I being? I don't want to be rejected. If I'm rejected, then that means there's something wrong with me because I put so much value in you and us.
Well, and this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I said those are the things I was thinking about when I was driving. I was just like, man, it's hard because like that's where your value is. That's where all this comes from, and just trying to figure it out when you're not getting any help. You know what I mean? It's like someone blew up the Eiffel Tower and just said, hey, rebuild it, but you don't get any blueprints. You're like, all right, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
What you were saying, Holden?
Well, no, I those are great points. No, I was just gonna say, I mean, this is even worse in a way. I don't even think it was hatred necessarily. I think it was what they say is worse than hatred, which is like indifference, right? It's
Boredom.
like, yeah, like you, just your existence means nothing to me. Like I just don't. I just want to ignore your existence. It's in that way. It's like hatred at least is a feeling, right? And it's at least triggers a response and a reaction emotionally. But indifference is like, yeah, it projects that same idea of nothingness. I what another thing I really just enjoyed like being a part of this village, and it not only was it beautiful, but like I really loved like the townspeople and like 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 the quirks and the characteristics of each. Again, like the priest, which was a little weird. He was a little weird, but he was like funny, and the bartender at the pub and a few of the other guys there like were really funny. So I enjoyed that aspect of the movie. Um, I have some fun facts to get to, and I also got to give credit where credit is due. While he's not, at least in my book, on the level with Tarantino, I do think that McDonagh deserves to be in the conversation, um, different than directors, right? Because he's director slash writer. So those guys get um, their own
Their own
category.
section.
Yeah, their
Mhm.
own category, right? With for me, with Tarantino at the top, but then you got like, Chris Nolan, Paul Thomas Anderson, even like M. Night Shyamalan and Wes Anderson, are some of the guys in that ballpark as far as directors slash writers. And to me, from what I've seen so far, because I need to rewatch both In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths, but I did watch Three Billboards Outside of
Mhm.
Ebbing, Missouri, and that was a fantastic movie.
I gotta watch that. I heard it's really good.
It's a really good movie. This was a really good movie in my book. So for me, like this puts him, at the top of the list. We could argue about who else could be up there with him, but to me, not a large body of work by any means, but in my opinion, very, very high quality. So I give that's the respect that I have for Martin McDonagh. And then fun
I mean,
facts.
with the things I said, I will. I mean, I can say that I enjoyed everything that was presented in front of me because it made me think. It made me wonder. It made me question. And so that even though I didn't like the story itself, and I wish, I would have got some more. I still think that the reason I didn't like it is because they were dealing with things that I don't normally deal with. So like I'm in my position of going, okay, well, how do I feel about this? I'm putting my feelings into it, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a good movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean it sounds like what you didn't like was this, things in the story or the story. It wasn't like it was a bad move on the director, or like something wasn't done right or good enough. It wasn't
Yeah,
that. It was just the story in and of itself, which is
yeah.
difficult and challenging.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, fun. I don't know how fun these are, but they're interesting tidbits.
If
I
they
wish
deal with Jenny, they're not fun.
I wish I had more. Well, one fun thing I learned was apparently Colin Farrell kept getting bitten by a bunch of the animals that they shot with.
I guess they thought he was dull too.
Yeah. But Brandon Gleeson is actually quite an accomplished fiddle player. Not only was he actually playing the fiddle in the movie, he actually wrote the song, "The Banshees of Inisherin."
Mm.
Oh,
It's a Brandon Gleeson composition.
I will say he did seem very comfortable. I
Yeah,
mean, once he lost the fingers, obviously he wasn't playing as much. But when he was playing, it felt like he knew what he was doing.
man, and that guy is just such a freaking powerhouse actor, man. Like he just played such a good curmudgeon. Like he the
His face the whole time, bro.
Yeah, bro, his face and like his timing of like when he would say things, like how much space he would give before he said the words, and like the delivery was just, man, it was a power. Like he's a dynamo, acting. It was, and then alongside with Colin Farrell, who, started out as just a face, but now at this stage, I mean, he's one of the best actors out there,
Yeah.
and just goes so deep in. I mean, I think we talked about it before, like unrecognizable as Penguin. I mean,
Yeah.
the makeup, but like his accent, like the guy is
Mhm.
just he's become incredible.
Mhm.
Um, so then, yeah, the only other one is just that apparently Martin McDonagh started to write or wrote some of this 7 years ago, and actually at that time showed it to Colin Farrell, um, and wanted to make it, but then for whatever reason put it back down at that time, and then
Usually it's always scheduling conflicts.
yeah, whatever it was, 7 years later, here we are, and
Seven
it's racked
years
up some awards
later.
already. It's racked
Oh
up
yeah, it
some
seems
awards.
like, I mean, it seems like it's gotten a lot of awards. It's certified fresh. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
If you said 7 years ago, that's about the time when he was also doing three billboards. Then,
Oh yeah, has it been that long?
because yeah, I think billboards came out. That was in 2015. Came out 2017.
Hmm.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay. All right. Well, Kevin, why don't you kick off our rating portion of the episode?
All right. Do you want to explain our ratings, or do you want me to?
1 to 5 scale.
If you gotta ask, you obviously don't want to do it.
Yeah,
That's my hint.
1 to 5 little Jerry's. Don't ask us what little Jerry's are. It's just a thing. If you know, you know. But that is the scale.
Oh, I was about to tell him what it is.
1 to 5.
All
It's
right.
a
Go
little
ahead.
Jerry is a fighting cock. I'm just gonna say that.
Yes, it is. A champion. A champion
Excuse
fighting
me,
cock.
a champion
Yeah.
who has slain both fowl and man.
All right. Well, now that that's out,
Oh
um,
boy.
I like I said earlier, it started going a little slow. I think when it started off, I was comparing it a little too much to In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths, and that was hurting it in the beginning for me. But when I let that go and I started delving more into the story, well, Juan said, like the side characters, I thought were all great. I thought the settings was great. I thought the story was great. Um, it was good as I watched it, and when I just thought of it a little bit, let it simmer in my mind a little bit more, it got better and better. Um, I thought it was a great story about things that for some people who seem content, but things are just below the surface and it starts coming up. And I'm going to give it. I'll give it a 5 because I love the movie, and yeah, that's it. It's a 5.
Um so yeah, for me it was a tough watch. I had watched it a couple times, and every single time, the same scenes hit me, and I was just like, ugh. I really do wish I had more on why Calm made the decisions that he made, because it's hard for me to grasp that he wanted to make something great like a piece of music, but then he was also willing to cut his fingers off. And so like that whole, cut your nose, spite your face, like that's never made sense to me. So um it was frustrating that I'm seeing this guy who is so adamant on staying away from someone that he's willing to take these drastic measures, literally into his own hands. And I feel like if that would have been fleshed out more, as opposed to maybe him making his music, I would have liked this a bit more. Um, but it's just, I don't know. I guess I was just putting too much real life into it, and because again, I've been in that place where I've had someone who said to me like outright, like, "Oh, I don't want to be your friend anymore." And it's just like, why? And you didn't. I never got that, and I couldn't. Obviously, like, I wasn't like Podrick, and I wasn't trying to stay around and kept inserting myself in. I was able to just like, okay, you're good, I'm good. um but I don't know, I guess maybe hitting kind of close to home like that, and then just the ending where everything just spiraled out of control for Podrick. And I mean, he lost so much, and again, it made me ask why. Why is this happening? Um, it was a tough watch. For me, this is probably it's going to be a 3. I don't see myself watching this again, even as, intriguing as it may have been in the insight that you guys have given me. It's still going to be tough to watch, and I don't have any interest in doing that. Um, so yeah, it's for me. It's Three Little Jerry's.
Fair, fair. Yeah, I mean, since we're all sharing about our long lost friendships, I've had that happen to me too. I think the three of us have had that happen with the same individual, but then I've had that in other instances as well,
Yeah.
including, I mean, we did say this was like a relationship, so certainly had breakups and what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I love the movie. Um, loved just it's again the character exploration, set in a beautiful place, just expertly told, through incredible writing and direction by Martin McDonagh. I also do love that, all the, at least the major players in this were all Irish, and Irish, but Martin McDonagh, Gleeson, Condon, all Keoghan, like all the main four, and the director and writer, all Irish. I respect that, and I enjoy seeing that. So I like that, but still, it is difficult. This is a difficult movie, and ultimately, for my taste, it while I understand why the movie had to do it, it was a little bit too dark for my taste, at the end, to the point where it is I mean, I'd have to really, get myself into that place mentally, to watch it at least from the halfway point on, because the first half was just golden and so entertaining and amusing and funny, but then so dark, towards the end, and particularly with the little donkey's death, and then and just seeing Podrick completely, like self-destruct and deteriorate,
Mm-hmm.
like we said, through the metaphor of the candle being snuffed out, just seeing the light completely go from this person is really sad. Yeah, so that's just a little bit darker than I prefer in my movies. So for me, excellent, but with that one drawback. So it's a 4 out of 5 for me.
Excellent.
Fa-
You know
Fair.
what I consider a really good dark comedy. You ever saw Death of Smoochie?
I did not.
I've always felt like
Yeah.
that's a really great dark comedy because there's a lot of dark things in that movie. Like you're talking like mental illness and physical violence. Like I mean, you name it. Like everything is in there, but it doesn't go so over the top that you're just like, oh God, like what is happening? And
Yeah,
that's how I felt at the end of this. I'm like, oh God, why? Because there was nothing that Podrick did to deserve everything that had happened to him. And I understand his sister had free reign to go do what she wanted to do, and that's fine. I think I was just more upset about the fact that his donkey died. Again, I wasn't upset that a human being died, but seeing an animal die, I'm just like, ah. Um, I don't know. It just felt like now by the end of it, Podrick was just getting crapped on, and there was just no reason for it. Only because what Calm wanted to do something. I don't
well,
know.
be
It's
selfishness.
yeah,
The
yeah.
impact that
Selfish
selfishness can
Rex.
have.
That's what they say.
When you think about it, it's his actions that killed the donkey. It's his actions that hurt Podrick. It's his actions that got his house burnt down. And even though you can also accuse Siobhan of being selfish, like her selfishness was, I don't know, it was more sacrifice, you know. It wasn't as self-absorbed, you know, or as vain as columns appeared to be, you
Yeah.
know, whereas hers were more kind of fundamental and essential. You know, like she didn't belong there. You know, she was there out of love for her brother, but she
Yeah,
didn't.
but I think that's why I kind of got soured by that because it felt like she made the decision that she made because she just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. That's kind of how I felt. So I was kind of like, I wasn't. I shouldn't say soured. I was just kind of like, that's kind of a cop out because I really did like her character. I liked her character a lot, um, and I had no problem with her leaving, but the timing of it, I was just like, uh, why is she leaving now? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, but is it selfish? So like again, like it may have not been the best time, but the problems between her and between her brother and his former best friends weren't her problems. Like she just wanted better for herself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
And like, and fine, and maybe not selfish to say, hey, let me put my life and everything I have on hold because you're
Yeah.
having an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like that like I don't see it as selfish because like there's nothing wrong, and I deal with that sometimes. Like, hey, I don't want to do stuff because other people. I'm thinking about other people, but everyone else advances, and then you don't get advanced. You stay where you're at.
Yeah. Well, a fun fact for me is that I've always dreamt about walking out of a place that I've rented and walking over to the pub and just drinking with the local Irish. I
Mhm.
so like I'm dying to do that. I want to go to
Mhm.
Ireland. I want to walk into a pub and just
Mhm.
be immersed.
Yeah. You should do it. Do it. You
It's on
will. You
it's
will
on the
do it.
agenda. It's on
You
the
will.
agenda.
Yeah. Oh, Danny boy, the bells, the bells.
Mhm.
Nobody lays a finger on me like a charms.
Uh,
That's all the Irish I got for you, bud. Sorry.
I by the way, I do want to incorporate fecking into my
Whoa,
vocabulary.
whoa,
Dude.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Yours is too close to the real thing, bro.
That's
It's
why I love it.
it's no. You can't love it because you're
It's
just saying the
fecking,
word. No, it's feckin.
fecking. Oh
Feckin.
my bad, fecking.
That's not what you
Feckin.
said that first
It's
I
time.
know the first three
I
times
said
you said the
fecking.
actual word.
No, I
You're
said like
saying it
pecking, but
again.
with an F. I said like pecking, but with an F.
No, you
So
didn't, because that's
fecking. Yeah,
feckin.
I said fecking.
You just said the real word.
I did not say the real word. It's FEC. In case my kids are listening to this, I am
Oh,
saying FECKING.
I know how to spell it because I had subtitles on, but you're not saying feckin'.
No, I'm not saying fecking
You're
with the accent.
talking like a fecking gum.
Let's go get in a row.
Let's do feckin' though. I'm okay with it.
Dude,
Okay.
one time I had this professor in college, and we took like I had this like literature class with him,
Mhm.
and we would read like these plays, and he was a homosexual man who kind of like had a crush on me,
All
and
right.
like I could act, you know, I was a pretty good actor, so he was always calling on me to like to you know to have the most lines. I'm like, dude. So one time, bro, he literally has like these Irish actors that showed up to class, and they were gonna act out this play with us,
Yeah.
and they're like some of them were like legit Irish, and some of them were just really good at the accent, but they're like on a stage in chairs, and he's like, "Oh, there's an extra part, you know, Juan. Why don't you go? You know, you could do a pretty good accent. Why don't you go up and read, you know, read lines with them?" And I was like, I really don't want to. And he was like, no, no, come on, you'll be great. He would really like pressure me into doing these things. So I go up, dude, and like I can do a good accent for like the time that you heard here, you know, like 5 seconds. Once it's like a
That's a
bunch of
solid minute.
dude, it just goes all over the place. It's like Scottish and English and like a mixture of everything. Oh my gosh, bro. I felt like I was insulting these people. Like I was so embarrassed up there. And I had to do it with the accent. Like I couldn't just read the lines normally. He like wanted the accent, you know, and it was part of the play. And I knew it was so terrible, dude. And I was just like, please let this end immediately.
This guy's sitting here at the end of it going, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Listen,
Something
listen,
like that.
Juan. You said you wanted to write a screenplay. That is a great opening prompt for some movie to unfold after that you can write. I'm just telling you.
But you said I'm not a good comedic writer.
Oh, I didn't say you had to write a comedy, by the way.
I
I'm just saying that's a good open.
I just told a comedic anecdote.
How
Oh,
about
I know, but
you write the story and I'll make it a comedy?
yeah, you get someone to doctor up, punch it up a little bit, but you could write out this story and someone could add in some stuff.
You're gonna
So
have a lot of feckins in there.
And for the record, you're welcome for the encouragement. You cheeky little bastard, insulting me.
What encouragement?
To write a screenplay, and I gave him like that'd be great. I was trying to encourage him, and what do I get? Well, you said I wasn't a good comedic actor. It's not that I say it; it's that you weren't a good comedic writer. That's all.
Farewell, lads.
All right, we're done. I'm out.
I love you. I don't know how to
Love.
say that. I don't know how to say that in an Irish tone.
That was pretty good.
Hey, all
Juan,
right.
Juan, show him how to say it.
I love you.
I fucking love you.
All right, you have a good night.
Let's go drink a pint.